A new report is already warning us that if Donald Trump is to become president and gets his economic priorities passed by Congress and the Senate, signed into law, a new report by economists is saying that if Donald Trump gets his economic laws actually passed, it could cause a recession for the United States, the worst we've had since the Great Depression. Not the worst since the Great Recession, by the way, since more than 70 years ago. These numbers are pretty grim, and it's coming out of Moody's Analytics, so it's a gigantic group of economists who are using a model for the U.S. economy that's very similar to that used by both the Congressional Budget Office and the Federal Reserve, and they put in the numbers using what Donald Trump says he's going to do. And so some of the things that he says he's going to do that they're trying to model for is he says he's going to kick out all the illegals, all those people who are taking your jobs, he's going to kick them out. He's going to start a trade war with China, imposing something like a 45% tariff on Chinese products coming into the U.S., which would then result in them putting up their own tariff, stopping us from selling our products in China, and could probably have a domino effect through the region, I would imagine. They're not even modeling for that. They're just talking about the actual tariff that he's said specifically he'll do. And of course, there's his tax policy, which I did a video on something like a year ago, and I talked about how it made the George W. Bush tax cuts seem like something that some sort of amalgamation of Barack Obama and Bernie Sanders would have come up with. The tax cuts, I think, are one of the scariest things about Donald Trump, and they're just one of the elements that Moody's was working with here. And so what happened? Well, I'm going to put up this chart because it's very important. It shows you the short-term impact is a literal reduction in the size of the U.S. economy. Not a slowing of growth, but an actual contraction of our GDP. And you see there that eventually, after enough years, roughly after his 8 years, they would expect that we would then probably get our feet back underneath us and would start to grow. Although the gap between those lines, we are talking an absolutely massive effect there. Let's talk in terms of jobs, okay? Under the current modeling of the economy, without any major changes in any direction, you have about 6 million additional jobs being created between now and 2020. Okay, so that's 4 years, 6 million extra jobs. Many people would say that's not enough, but those 6 million people will certainly appreciate it. Instead, we will lose 3.4 million jobs in just those next 4 years. So that's more than 9 million jobs, which will just poof, away, gone. 9 million jobs. Now think about the actual consequences that then would have. If you have 9 million Americans who could be contributing to the economy, paying their taxes, they have health coverage, they're going out there buying products, and now they don't, well, first of all, they're probably receiving some sort of federal benefits, which conservatives say that they would hate. They're also not paying their taxes, which means that then will hurt our tax base. It leads to higher deficits and eventually to more debt. You don't have them having health insurance in a lot of cases because they were getting it through their jobs because we refused to start a single-payer health plan in this country. And so if they have some sort of medical emergency, well, that's the end of their life potentially, or they're in debt for the rest of their life, and that's it for them being a contributor to the economy. Now, I did a video, this is a fast aside, I did a video where they analyzed the effect of people not having health insurance because of not having jobs as a result of the Great Recession, which we already went through. It literally killed millions of people around the globe, including a significant number of Americans. Now imagine what effect this would have. Now, I understand that those numbers are a little bit abstract. It's difficult to look at one person and say they died because of this economic impact, but you can look at large trends. And we're talking about potentially hundreds of thousands or millions of lives that will be lost because people will lose their jobs and the economy will retract. I mean, then there's a doubling of the national debt, which I think more conservatives would be talking about. And then there's a lot of other stuff. We're not going to get into all the numbers. This is the human impact, and that's what I'm more interested in. Now, Trump says you can't trust those numbers. His campaign says you can't trust those numbers, including the fact that one of the economists they have is a contributor to Hillary Clinton, which is true. And that leads me to believe that he could theoretically be biased towards the Democrats. But he was also an economic advisor for John McCain. And so it might be that he's just tied in with a lot of politicians, not necessarily uniformly on the left or on the right. That chart is fucking scary. And here's the thing. What we have right there is we have economists simply trying to model, based on the promises that he's made, what would actually happen. No disaster or anything like that, simply inputting some variables. But he has already said that he thinks it would be a good thing if the world economy collapsed because America could get a good deal coming out of it. That's the best case scenario. He wants disaster. He wants the global economy to shatter. Okay, this would be if he doesn't get his way, we lose 9 million jobs and we double the national debt over a period shorter than his 2 terms. This should be terrifying. Okay, now I know some people are going to say, John, you don't get to talk about the bad things that would happen if Trump became president, because then it seems like what you're saying is that we should just live based off of the fear of that. That's not the way that this channel works, and that's not the way that journalism works, okay? If a gigantic group of extremely influential and trusted economists puts together a model, and that has ramifications, I'm going to talk about it because that's reality, and that's truth, and that's where I want to live, okay? People can do whatever they want with the information, but I'm not going to pretend that the information isn't there. I'm not going to allow the economy to simply slip into this massive recession and then have Trump and other conservatives say, nobody saw it coming. Nobody predicted it. Okay, they predicted it, and I did what I had in my little power to try to amplify the message just a little bit. Okay, now, will there be some horrific things if, let's say Hillary Clinton becomes president, okay? If she passes the TPP, is that going to be bad for the economy? I believe it's going to be fucking bad for the economy, okay? I don't know every policy that Jill Stein is in favor of. Is it possible that some of her economic plans would have bad effects on the economy? Yes, it's possible. And if Moody's puts together a report on it, I'm going to talk about it here. Right now, they've got Trump, and he looks like exactly the sort of disaster that I've been long predicting that he'll be. Feel free to do with that information whatever you'd like.